During the time of the incident in Kootenay, I was the deck officer. We had been down south in the islands in the Caribbean doing some workups with our squadron, and we were recalled to Halifax, and we had been told to steam at fairly high speed. We returned to Halifax, restored and refueled, and headed across to join the carrier task group, which was operating in the Baltic area. And we crossed the Atlantic at fairly high speed, fueling twice on the way over. And then we joined the task group and remained with them for the remainder of their exercises in the Kattegat area. Of course, with the carrier group, we were running at very high speeds, particularly during flying operations. And after the exercises had completed, the task group was routed to various ports within the southern England. Our port for R&R at that particular time was Plymouth in England. We remained in Plymouth for probably about a week, and then we sailed that particular morning to join the carrier and the other task group, which was proceeding up the English Channel. We'd been given permission to steam out ahead of the task group to detach and complete our quarterly full power trials, which were pending. And also we had to complete some what we call a spiff trial on our sonars. We were going to be far enough ahead of the task group after our power trial that we would have time to drop a sonar target and do our sonar calibrations and recover the target, and then rejoin the task group, which by that time should have caught up to us. At about 7:30 in the morning, I had the deck crew out on the quarterdeck streaming, or not streaming, but getting this target ready, which was lashed outside of the guardrails in preparation for dropping after the whole power run was over. At about 8 o'clock in the morning, I was in the wardroom having coffee, and the engineer officer arrived, Al Kennedy, and we had coffee together. And he was going down to the engine room when he left. He asked me if there was going to be any problem in the quarterdeck with our rigging if he went down and went up to full power. At that time, we'd been running up toward full power for the last few hours. So I told him no, there was no problem as far as we were concerned, and I proceeded to the quarterdeck. He went down below.
My name is Alan Bell, known as Dinger Bell. On the 23rd of October 1969, I was an able seaman ER. We relieved the morning watch at 10 to 8, and we were making preparations to have the engineer and the senior engineering staff on board come down the engine room to proceed with full power trials. We relieved the morning watch at 10 to 8. Shortly after 8 o'clock, 6 other people came down, including the engineer, chief ERA, chief of the engine room, engineer's writer, Gary Hutton as a secondary reading taker, and Tom Crabb, who was to work on the fire and bilge pump. We proceeded to full power trials. Pete Brett had kind of gone around by the starboard engine. The rest of us were all around the main consoles. That's where the fresh air from outside kind of blows down. The main throttles are. Petty Officer McKinnon was on the starboard throttle. Petty Officer Harmon was on the port throttle. Engineer officer was standing by the phone. It was with the chief ERA. The rest of us were in various positions on port and starboard side of the main console.
My name is Larry Doling. I was an able seaman, bosun, on board the Kootenay. The day the incident happened, I was in the wheelhouse with able seaman Al Cottrell and leading seaman Bill Bradley. We were the wheelhouse crew. We closed up on watch normal time, like 10 before the hour. Approximately 20 after 8, just after the canteen had closed, the ship had there was a massive explosion in the engine room. Actually, I didn't know what was going on at the time because we were in the wheelhouse. We were coming up doing full speed trials when the incident happened.
I'm Petty Officer McPhee, what was underwater. On the day about the Kootenay incident, I was in the cafeteria. It was morning watchman. Myself and Petty Officer Stringer were in the forward end of the cafeteria. We were about to clear it out because breakfast was almost over. I think it was approximately 8:20 or so. We were talking on what we were going to do for the day. All of a sudden, everything went quiet.
I can recall it being 20 minutes after 8. We heard this whoosh and suddenly there was a wall of flame come from the starboard gearbox. It was immediately followed by a blast of fire, went completely round, whooshed all through the engine room. We were all almost immediately all on fire. I can recall a pipe coming from the bridge, the captain informing us that fire, 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 fire in the engine room, this is not an exercise. By then we were fully engulfed in flames. And it seemed like the gearbox had cracked open. There was a sheet of flame coming out of it. The forced lube pump was feeding oil to that starboard gearbox. It was spraying out of the gearbox casing, landing on us, and immediately igniting on fire. I can recall McKinnon and the engineer trying to turn back the throttles to slow us down because we were at full power. And then all bedlam broke loose. It was, everybody's on fire and everybody's trying to live. The only way we could get out, Tom Crabb, our training in the past had been that in the event of a fire, you go to the lowest point in the engine room. And Tom Crabb was on the port side by one of the ladders that lead to the lower engine room, and he immediately went to the bilge. And he died in the bilge. The rest of us were all trying to get up a ladder. The ladder ran over top of the main feed tanks. It was, I'd say, roughly maybe 15 foot, very narrow ladder. And you had 9 people trying to get up that ladder at the same time, all on fire. Everything was calm, there's no pain. You're on fire, your skin is dropping off. And I just knew I was going to die. It just stopped. No sense of time, no pain, no nothing. And the ladder was clear. There was nobody at the bottom of the ladder trying to get up it because they were all laying on the deck dead. I proceeded up the ladder. I couldn't use my hands after the first few steps up the ladder. I couldn't use my hands anymore. So I started using my forearms. When I got 3/4 of the way up the ladder, there was a body in front of me. I got to the top of the hatch, and the hatch was open, but the outside door was closed. I managed to get him high enough up that I got the door open. He fell out. I came out, and I tripped over him. I'm laying on the main Burma Road, the Engineer Flats, and just the heat was so intense, and all I could see was the blood bubbling underneath me. And I lay there and I prayed for God to get me out of there. And I later learned that Sub-Lieutenant Reifenstein had come along in diving gear and picked me up. And he stood me up. I made my way to the sick bay. The doc was still in the sick bay. I get in there, and the only thing left on my shirt was my pocket with my cigarette stuck. My ears were burnt off, but I was still in no real pain.
All of a sudden, everything went quiet. As you know, the engines were running up at quite a speed, and everything seemed to went still. And towards the after end of the cafeteria, the door was open. There it was. Door was completely covered in a flame, just like you couldn't see nothing but a red-orange flame. And all of a sudden, a couple seconds behind that, a cloud of smoke, heavy, dark smoke, from the deck to the deckhead was moving towards us. That time, Lou Stringer said, "Everybody, keep quiet, get down, be calm, don't panic." He said to me, "We had to get these young people out of here." All of a sudden, that smoke that was coming towards us, just like a heavy blackout curtain, it covered us. Once it covered us, everything was dark. You couldn't see anything in front of you. And remember, Stringer said, "Hit the floor, hit the deck," and on the deck, we all got on the floor and on the deck, I would say. Was weird. Smoke was burning our eyes. And coughing, all you could hear was people moaning and coughing, and we were standing. I remember we were standing next to the urn, the coffee urns and hot water urn alongside it before the incident. And I was coughing so bad, I had a T-shirt in my hand. I soaked that in the coffee urn and water, trying to cover my face and nose, to try to ease some of the heat and smoke. Anyway, it was dark, and we're laying on the floor. That's all you could hear, laying on the deck, pardon me. All you could hear was coughing and moaning and people in pain, and then everything went quiet.
Immediately after the incident happened, or during the incident, there was a large explosion in the engine room. The gas pressure, I guess, from the explosion caused, I would say, a whooshing sound or a noise coming through the whole ship. There was a air exchange, a difference in the air pressures throughout the ship. We felt that in the wheelhouse. Shortly after that, the entire forward end of the ship, where the wheelhouse was positioned, was full of started to fill up with thick black smoke. Smoke continued to come into the wheelhouse until you couldn't see across it with the wheelhouse, and it was probably a room 6 by 6, 7 by 7, that'd be the full size of it. There were 3 people in there, and we couldn't make out who was on the other side of the wheelhouse. That's how thick the smoke was. I can remember Bill, senior guy in there, he was on the system there talking to the bridge or trying to get permission to leave the wheelhouse. He asked the bridge at least 3 times before the bridge finally confirmed that we could in fact leave the wheelhouse. We got out of the wheelhouse, and there was people moving towards the officers' lower cabin flats. We went through there. That was the exit. You had to go through there, then up a ladder to the wardroom flats. From the wardroom flats through the hatchways to outside. It's completely black at that point. You couldn't see no light until you got up the ladder into the wardroom flats, and you could see the light coming in from the outside. As we got outside, well, it was me and a mass of people pushing and trying to get out to the light. It's hard to breathe, actually. You couldn't, choking and coughing to some degree. We got out on the upper deck, went to the guardrails. That's where it seemed to be clearest, where you could actually get away from the smoke, because the smoke was also billowing back out through the door, or the hatchway.